Hey there neighbors, Kevin here with eTrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Advent Air line of RV rooftop units with the R32 refrigerant. So if you found this page, you are probably looking for a replacement air conditioner unit and you've found your way to Advent Air. Now, since the changeover to R32, all of the prior components are no longer going to be compatible with these newer R32 units, so you will want to make sure that you also have the correct air distribution box to go along with it. If you're already at that point where you have it, you're most likely just looking at it as a replacement because maybe your unit has lived its life, but the air distribution box is still good to go and the thermostat's still fine for you. Or you're wanting to swap up from the 13.5 up to the 15K and just get a little bit better cooling efficiency. Now with our rooftop unit, we can get this in two different colors. We have the black out here today, but you can also get this in white so that you can match everything else that's on the roof of your trailer and really keep that aesthetic. In terms of the BTU rating, like I said before, we were upgrading up to that 15 with our unit today, but they still do offer those 13,500 BTU rated units. Getting these installed isn't too difficult, but you can definitely check out one of our install videos with the complete kit, so that way you can make sure that you are getting the entire setup completely installed properly, so that way your trailer is nice and cool when you're out on those camping trips. To start off our install, we are going to need to come inside first. We're going to be taking down our air distribution box and the 4 bolts that are going to actually mount up and clamp the rooftop unit to our roof. So to start off, I'm going to be popping out these little caps here to reveal our mounting hardware. And I'm just using a pick. You could also use a flathead screwdriver if you had a thin enough one. Just have to pull back on our vent cover. See which way this one goes. All right, it goes that way. Pull it down. And we've got 2 screws here holding it to the main assembly, and that looks like 2 more running up into that framework too. So we got 4 here to remove. Now when you remove the last one, be sure to have a hand on it because you don't want this to fall on top of you. There's 2 screws on our mounting framework here. I'm going to pop those out, and then I'm also going to pop out the screws holding our control box here. This is where our 110 wiring is coming in and connects to everything. I want to keep that separate, a little bit less weight on it. So I'm going to disconnect that from the framework here, and we can pull that down. Of course, each one is like sticking. For our bolts, I'm going to be using a 3/8 socket. And we'll pop those out. Alright, this last one, make sure you got a handle on it. And now we have essentially a junction box here. So I'm going to pull this cover off. Now before you touch any of this stuff, you definitely should make sure that you are disconnected. We don't have the trailer plugged in right now, specifically for this reason. We don't want to make sure that we are nice and safe while we're taking this apart here. I'm going to kind of position that up a bit better so I can see what I'm doing. And then we'll take off the cover. You can see our connections. We've got our 110 hooked up here, so we can just start disconnecting that. I'll take these wire nuts off. Alright, I'm going to need to loosen up the strain relief. You should be able to pull this out. Just need to straighten it up a bit. And from here, so it looks like we have a 6-pole plug, or 6-pin plug, I should say. Disconnect that. And this is most likely going to be power and ground. And then we probably have communication wires with this guy running over to our thermostat. And this is running up into the main unit, so that's not something that we'd be passing on to the next set. But we are going to need to get in here to the 12 volt stuff, so it looks like I am going to have to pull just a bit more of this stuff apart to get to everything. Now would be a good time, take a picture, figure out exactly which each one of these wires is connected to, and then we can figure out based on the wire diagram that's on this box exactly what their functions are, so that way when we go to switch over to the new one, it makes it a lot easier to figure out exactly what each wire is used for. This wiring here, like I said, probably going to be my power and ground. I already disconnected the control box from it, and we're going to see, looking at my multimeter, I'm getting 12 volts, so this is right. If it was reversed, it'll flip-flop it, it'll say negative 12 volts. So that's an easy way just to confirm, so you can see. Now we need to figure out our furnace. That's the more important factor here. So I'm going to stick my ground lead back in. We're going to come over to our wires here. So the red one and the black one are clearly the ones going to our furnace. And we're labeled as such on the control box, but the problem was both furnace wires are the same color and they're both labeled the same. So kind of doesn't really help you too much. So if we stick this in here, one of these wires we aren't going to see any voltage on, and one will see 12. So this one's got 0 voltage. So whenever our thermostat hits a certain temperature that we have set for the furnace to kick on, it's going to now send power through this wire and turn on our furnace. This wire over here is to just give it power, constant power. And if I actually hook up to the right thing here, we should see 12 volts, which we do. So we know this is our constant running to our furnace. This is our intermittent, and this is the one that we for sure need to tie in with our controller on our new AC system. The constant 12 we might have to just cap off. Our rooftop unit's actually loose too. We're gonna get up on top, we're gonna get our old rooftop unit out of the way, we'll get our new one up there, and then we can come back inside and we'll get everything with our air distribution box, all that wiring, all those screws that we're gonna need to put in, all that done at that time. So let's get up on top. We're gonna harness up. This is a part at home where it's probably gonna be pretty challenging. You're gonna need a couple ladders, some really strong friends to help you lift that AC unit up on top of the roof, unless you have some heavy equipment like a forklift to get it up there. So this might be a time where you want to reach out and use our dealer locator. You can find a shop near you that can get that up onto your roof safely and get it installed professionally. Now I've got this set in place. I am going to have to probably make some more minor adjustments, but unless you have a second person down inside the trailer to kind of help guide you, it is a little bit harder to do from the top. So I'm going to go down, we'll take a look and see where we need to be at, and maybe, like I said, move it around just a little bit more, but I feel pretty confident that we have this in a decent spot. Now I've made some minor adjustments, kind of got that moved around. We can pull down our 6-pin plug from our rooftop unit, and we're going to grab the freeze sensor out of our packaging here, and we're going to pop that in. There's going to be a little blue holder in the coils here. We're going to stick that into. It's not going to go in very far, so you don't have to press too hard, but we'll pop that in and we'll leave this loose down here. This is going to plug into our new controller, so we'll have an easy little plug for that. With that being said, though, we can now grab our controller and our framework here, and I'm going to start loosening some of this stuff up, get this ready to start passing our wires through. So also pull off that cover right there, and you can also see on here it's got a nice little display of what each wire is, the color, and then what its function is. We've got our framework here. We're going to have to pass all of our wiring through so we can get this up into place, and then we'll also grab those 4 bolts that are in our kit that are really long. That's what's going to help hold this up and hold down our rooftop unit. Snug down each of the 4 bolts just until the frame here hits the ceiling, but we still need to tighten it more because we're going to actually compress down the foam gasket that is sitting between our rooftop unit and our trailer's roof here. So that's going to get compressed about halfway, and since this is such a low torque value, we are using a torque wrench you most likely aren't going to have unless you are a bike enthusiast. This is a much smaller, fine torque wrench, and we're going to be evenly tightening these down here. So I'll do a little bit here, kind of work my way across. It's not really a star pattern since we only have 4, but essentially I want to kind of go diagonal, across. That way I'm trying to keep this all even, so that way one side doesn't get pinched, get a little too tight, and then once we start tightening on other bolts, then it loosens up the others. So a little bit at a time, just keep working your way around. And like I said, you should see that gasket compress about halfway. And that one's clicking. Start out with our 110 wiring, and before I get too far, I want to make sure that I take the cap for the strain relief and put that on first. So that way when we get it on there, we can screw it right in, pass our wiring through. That can get pulled down. Once you get enough in there, now you can tighten down that strain relief cap. And that's also going to lock that in place so it can't wiggle free. Now we can use our wire nuts that we had previously. We're just going to reuse those. Actually, nice and tight. And then I'm going to finish these off with some electrical tape too, just to make sure that they don't come loose. Before you put that on though, make sure that you give it a little tug on each wire. Make sure it ain't going to potentially slip out. I want to have nice contact. Now we're going to tuck our wiring back up, which is sometimes easier said than done. This one that's going to be easy is our 6-pin. It's only going to go on one way. If you take a look at it, 2 sides are kind of D-shaped, and then one in the center is D-shaped on the other side. So we just want to match that up. So I need to actually flip this around. That in place. The other one over here is an optional heat strip connection point. We don't have that today, so that's not going to be an issue for us. Our freeze sensor is also going to be a little black connector. We're going to grab that and we'll pop that on with our freeze sensor wire. I'm going to tuck that out of the way. Less and less here so we have a little bit easier of a job. Now I'm going to start on my thermostat, and I am going to match color for color except for one of them. Obviously this is going to change depending on your setup, but I'm going red for my power for the thermostat. Purple is, looks like purple is B, A is blue. Those are just communication wires, and then green is going to be another communication wire. But like I said, I'm going to match color for color. The purple I'll have to just do to white though. It's hard to see in this lighting though. Alright, make sure you give it a nice tug on each connection. Don't want to have these coming loose. And then I'm going to cap each one of these with some electrical tape as well. Now I'm going to switch over to the furnace before I hook up power and ground. Now remember, we tested these 2 wires that ran over to our furnace, and the red one had no power, which means that that's the one that we're going to send power to wake the furnace back up. And then this one had constant power, so that one we're going to cap off over here because we don't need that for our setup today. Using this brown wire here that says to furnace, 12 volt power, we're going to splice that to that red wire that we have. We'll line that all up. We've got a wire nut for that one too. Yeah, it's still kind of loose, just because this is such a thin gauge. There we go, getting tight. As I'm completing each one of these, I'm also just tucking them up out of the way. Last here, we have power and ground. We already know green is our power, white is our ground. I'm going to have to uncrimp these crimp-on connectors. We'll do one at a time here. So red on our controller is going to be power. And finally, we'll do the same thing with our ground. Alright, so now I'm tucking this up out of the way. We do still have a couple other things we need to do up here, but I want to test the system first, make sure everything's working properly. So we're going to go over to the thermostat and get that plugged in. Then we can check it with power. Once we're done with that, we also need to get our little divider in here, which I've got sitting over here. Now this divider is going to sit up against it just like so. And you can see there's some double-sided tape on there too. We'll have to remove that. We'll get this into place. It'll stick right on there. And we want to get this up as much as we can, really seal that up. It's got a little foam gasket up top, and then they give you a foam double-sided, or one-sided cover here that's going to stick to this and stick to our divider. Now, if you needed to, say you had a smaller roof height here, you can also rip this piece off down here. It's just little welds right there, just kind of barely holding it on still, so you could easily just bend it, snap it off. Now in our case, we have a little bit more than 2.5 inches, so I will have to leave that on so that way I have something to stick to once we get ready for this. Hooked up to shore power. I turned on our thermostat here. It instantly went to cool. It's running. Let's double check, make sure we got air blowing out the way we want. So here, I can grab a little, or paper towel would be better here. Let's grab that. So you can see blowing air here and pulling air up over on the other side, right how we want it to be, so we know that's good. So I'm going to turn this back off. Now we can get that divider in, and we can close up the rest of this and get it all nice and sealed up and be ready to go. We get the backing for our double-sided tape off. And now we can get our divider up. And I'm going to press on that as much as I can to get it up, sealed up against the top rooftop unit as best I can, and also press it in to our double-sided tape. Alright, so or trim down the seal that we have too, and I'm going to get that into place. Hopefully without it sticking to the wrong spot. There we go. And now I can trim down this length here to match up with our vent, or ductwork. And I'm actually going to go in with some more HVAC tape just on the corners here to really seal this up, make sure that we're not sucking in that cold air that we're blowing right out. We don't want to keep cycling it up here in the rooftop unit, because that's how you end up having your rooftop unit. Condenser coils start to freeze up. And then we can grab our screws to actually mount this into place. And that's going to do it for our look at Advent Air's line of R32 refrigerant rooftop RV AC units. My name's Kevin. If you still have some questions about replacement or installation, please feel free to reach out to us via our Ask the Experts link, a comment on this video, or a phone call to our customer service department, and we'd be happy to help you out on your journey.